I say to him, listen, honeybee. I'm going to lead you around the rings of Saturn, across the moon and stars, and run lakes across the earth with such pleasures you have never experienced before. I say to him, listen, honeybee. I'm going to blow your mind, I'm going to set you up and knock you down. I'm going to lead you down the rainbow of ecstasy. I say, listen. I say, listen. I say, nothing. I gulp. My warm, metallic, tasting cup of water and grab him by his sweaty hand. Paying careful mind to as far as I was aware at that point in time, no room for comparison here. Massive erection dwelling in this priest's pants New Year's Eve costume. And I lead him up the rickety stairs that belong to neither him nor I, making this strangely calm journey to the summit, to the top of the house. To a small spare room where there's a bed and table, no curtains, no carpet, only the smell of Yorkshire Terrier to keep me company in my tim of terror. Well, I says terror, but I was strangely calm. It being my first time, I forgot I could be nervous. I was strangely passive yet aggressive in my come-on attempts. I knew it. He knew it. We were going to fuck, and it wasn't going to be kind, gentle, nor grand. I looked at him as if to say, well, honey bee, you're supposed to be this big man with all this experience. Take me around the rings of Saturn and down the rainbow of ecstasy. Well, big man, for this moment in time, my honey bee. But all I got was a brief introduction to what a clitoris was and can do of a, how the fuck did you do that? But then it was over without much climbing to the top of the roller coaster ride I heard so much about. All I got was a brief introduction from this big man. An awkward parade of my virginal white skin as I take off my costume. A mime as if I'm having a good time. So, how did a nice girl like me end up in a space, place, situation like this? So you may be wondering how a nice girl like me ended up here, that space, that place, that situation. It's not that hard to shift backwards in time to find out how it all accumulated to form the place, space and situation. So there I was, feeling all low, feeling all blue, feeling all numb and wanting some fun. So there I was, looking for a daily costume with the accommodating host of that night's show. She said to me, listen, sweet pea, you got to highlight your big features, you see. Highlight your big features. So, there I was, there she was, being engulfed by the awkwardness of the underwear section, picking out some armour for some imagined night's big crescendo in main event. So, armour picked out, armour tried on, armour making most of my big features. So, there I was, there she was, in the location we just left, the one with the bed and the table, no curtains, no carpet, only the smell of Yorkshire Terrier. We were delving into her chest of drawers, finding something apt, something I could adapt to my form. So I looked to myself as if to say, well, sweet pea, treacle tart, sunny delight, what's it gonna be? So, let's flash forward into a scene where this girl, one wearing virginal white skin and coated in a delightful mime costume, New Year's Eve costume. So let's flash forward in this particular flashback to a scene where this girl has a swarm of unexpected male attention. A flock of costume-ed men flocking, gathering, crowding, peacocking around, trying to tempt me with rings of Saturn and rainbows of ecstasy. So, I say to myself, well, sweet pea, treacle tart, sunny delight, what's it gonna be? Accomplice picked a loose lay named friend who had been sniffing around this cherry tree for some time. The aim, the subject of achievement to evolve, to reject, to change my form, to find the rings of Saturn and rainbows of ecstasy. So, there we were at the top, at the summit, the one with the bed and the table, no curtains, no carpet, and the smell of Yorkshire Terrier. The light so bright, no lampshade, no option to do it in the dark for some reason. His oddly nervous eyes piercing with oddly nervous intentions. He felt as if he's intruding on skin, on a scene, on a situation that wasn't his to taint, that he tainted awkwardly and pathetically, gently. He tainted my tits, he tainted my clit, he tainted my ass with his giant hands. He fumbled me on top of him, this 6'4" beanpole of a man. Up and down I went, not realising that the typical format, not realising that forwards and backwards was the typical format for this kind of performance. He realised I was bored, and bored stiff, unlike him at that point in time. It turns out the lack of enthusiasm is a turn off for guys. But sadly, he wanted to plough on. I guess that I might as well have been talking about the weather for all the arousal I was aiming to do with the sound of my voice. Carefreely, clinically, I gave my first hand job, as if it was the most natural thing in the world in that point in time, to have a mildly erect penis, plastic-coated cock in my hand. However, being the first dick I'd seen, I highly doubt I had much theoretical or technical practice. At this point, he noticed that my rivers had run dry, and the eve of disappointment was climaxed to a very unfortunate end. So he put his giant hands inside of me in an attempt to get me going. All it served was to finish the deed. The elusive cherry was no more, and just as about to panic about the big blood in his hands, he calmed with a sheen of fate, care-edness, what it was all about. He then realising this foolish girl escapade was over, he attempted to cuddle me, because that's what he thought that I wanted. But then I went down the stairs that seemed much smaller in size than before, down to the kitchen to make a cup of sweet relief. It serves, I want to sudden snap back to reality, where I am innocent but now tainted, but in a world with no possibility of rings of Saturn and rainbows of ecstasy, just tea and polite English conversation. Up the stairs I went on return. It seemed much smaller and grubbier than before, and there he was, faffing with awkwardness and a condom he did not know where to place. So he attempted, like he attempted so many things that night, to throw it out the window, missing the collection of lilies and garden gnomes, but like he did so much that night, he failed, giving the garden gnomes a rather interesting looking hat. In the morning, the light, bright, shining dawn, our cover below, the proverbial cat was out in the metaphorical bag, and it was shown that the deed was done, albeit after much gossiping, decidedly disappointedly so. So, I say to myself, well now, at least that's over. But, of course, with most dull, droning stories, even the ones with slight hints of romance, even if said romance was doused and drowned in cheap vodka and cigarette smoke, it went on. The next day, the next moments, it went on. She says to us, fair enough. You're popping a cherry, squeezing her out, wringing her up and leaving her to dry. Really? Try and clean up the stench of guilt and repression. She said my virginal white skin was no more, and with no more said about it, we went on, me, him, and another, to a cafe. It went on. Playing nice happy things with the stench of guilt and repression, and failed rings of Saturn and rainbows of ecstasy, his guilt-coated face contradicting my strangely calm, emotionless features, whether that be through denial or acceptance, either way. That's the story, so that's the tale of rings of Saturn and attempted rainbows of ecstasy.